Hey, welcome guys to another Blender tutorial right here on Active TV. I am your Blender guide, Ryan. And this week, this is basically what we're going to be doing. Do you see anything? Do you see anything? This is what UV textures do, guys. Look closer. Look closer. You're not looking close enough. Ah, there it is. Wow. This is what we're going to be creating this week in Blender tutorial episode 4. This is purely image driven. I did not model this at all. Look at the detail of how beautiful this is. Been learning about Blender, and we've been learning a lot about how to model, how to extrude, and all of those things, topology and all that stuff. And so last week we had a look at shaders and how to shade your gray model, right? So now that you've had colors to it, there's a lot more that you can actually do to it, and we're going to be looking basically at texturing. And texturing is very awesome because it is the most simple way of making your model look extremely realistic. All right, this is like the thing where we start getting excited. This is where we start looking at 3D and we feel alive. We feel like we can create, and we are a creator. And you can build little cities, and you can build little guys with nice white shirts with badges on top of their shirts, and jean pants with Nike shoes, and you can do a lot more when it comes to texturing now. All right, so first of all, let's answer the question, what the heck is texturing, right? Well, basically, texturing is where you now use an image or a pattern to drive a certain aspect of your shader. Example, a brick wall. You look at a brick wall. Now, I'm sure you would imagine, okay, sure, if I were to build a brick wall, oh my goodness, I can imagine what complicated modeling that must be, bringing out all of those little bits, making, the cracks and the crevices and all the fine detail. No, this is where texturing comes in hand. Now, if you look, example, at a brick wall, all right, it's got a texture. It's got a certain amount of shininess. It's got a certain amount of matte. There's a certain color. It sticks out in one part, especially if you've got like a face brick wall. There's parts. There's the brick that sticks out. Then there's the cement in between that is more in. All right, in the brick is out, and the in betweens are in. If you understand what I'm saying. So textures can actually drive that. So in other words, it can do it for you. All right, you just apply it, you project it, and boom, you got a brick. All right. Textures can also drive a base color. What is a base color? Remember last episode 3, shading, we looked at the fact that you get your base color, and that is the color. So whether it's pink, orange, yellow, green, whatever, you can drive your color with a texture, whether it is a carpet or a specific pattern or a specific fabric, or whether it's brick wall, you can drive that color, because obviously you look at your wall, guys. Take a look at your wall right now in whatever room you're in. Your wall is not a perfect bland base color. All right, there are a bit of marks on it because there's cement underneath. When they're painted, there's specific places where it's that thing that makes it look more realistic. So you can drive that with an image. Basically, that image is projected onto your model. We use UV texturing, which UV texturing we're going to be looking at next week. I know I said this week. Yes, I know I said this week. But, I'm trying to just keep these episodes really short, really simple, and to the point. So, we're going to be looking at texturing. Next week, we're going to be looking at UV texturing. And so, what you want to look for in your textures, you need to look for seamless textures. What does that mean? It means it's a pattern that can be repeated. What does that mean? It means that if I take the image and I duplicate it and I move it if I put them right next to each other, they look seamless. It doesn't look like there's like I put two together, it looks like one. And so that is a seamless texture. All right, you need to look for large textures with that repeated pattern. Within our shader last week, we looked at the fact at our principal shader, I spoke about the principal shader. I spoke about how it's got all of these adjustments over here, and I spoke about the fact that the only things you need to change is your base color, whether it's a metal or a dielectric, or you adjust your roughness according to your reflections or your specular. And then I spoke about your emission, and then over here your normal. So what happens is that your image texture can actually be plugged straight into any of these plugins over here, right? And we're actually going to do that today, right? We're going to build a really, really cool texture, and your image texture can drive your glossiness. Why? Because, e.g., you look at rust on metal. Not the whole piece of metal is rusted. Is specular, is reflective. Rusted metal will have certain parts rusted, so in other words dielectric, and certain parts will be reflective. So you can drive that. You don't have to sit there and select certain pixels and then alter them. No, you can get an image texture to just drive that straight away. It can drive your shadows depending on your object. It can drive your what is called subsurface scattering. What the hell is subsurface scattering? Well, basically it is like skin, all right, like flesh, all right, but like skin, because your skin absorbs light. But then also if you put your hand up right in front of a really bright light, you'll see there's a glow around the edges. You can almost see through your fingers, stuff like that. That is subsurface scattering. It can drive your transmission. It can drive, so in other words, which part of your model the light is coming through, which parts is not coming through, and you can customize it. So not the whole thing is, but then only certain parts are, because depending on what object you're building, for example, you can have a glass and you can have marks, muddy marks on the glass. So the glass, the light is coming through your transparency, and certain parts there aren't, where the mud is. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, you can drive your brightness, your bumpiness, and all you're doing, like I said, is you are plugging into all of these input connectors over here. All right. And so, for example, if I were to take this cube right here, right, and I'm going to put a texture on it. So let me just show you quickly. Shift A. Texture, image texture, and this is what you're going to use to plug into your specific option. So let me go and load up a texture right here. I'm going to load a wood texture. I'm going to plug that into the base color. When it comes to UV wrapping, the default all of these default meshes over here are already UV wrapped basically for you already. So as soon as I plug this wood texture, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag to my base color, and there you go. Pretty cool. Wow, hey, there you go. I've got this wood texture and it is plugged into this box over here. But now let's say, for example, I can also use it to drive, let's say I can use it to drive any of my other options, right? So e.g., let me plug this thing into my alpha. All right. But now if I'm using the EV render, all right, which I use quite often, love it, it's really, really awesome. I just need to go and change my my blend mode to maybe let's see, alpha blend. And when I change it to alpha blend, you can see now my object has got transparency, all right, except that it's not really working well. It looks like it's a ghost box. So if I'm creating like a ghost movie, yeah, okay, cool, I've got something cool going there. The thing about textures is that you need to get the texture that is very specific for what you are doing, all right. So what I'm saying is that you're going to need to get yourself very specific textures, all right. And that is, if I go over now, you can get textures for free at a website called cgtextures.com. Go check them out. And so what I did is I picked up this texture right over here. Yep, that's a texture, guys. This was not modeled. This is purely texture image driven, all right. And we're going to create this today, all right. And so you can see we get quite a couple textures here. Alright, there's my roughness. You can see it looks weird. Don't worry, Blender understands exactly what's going on. My normals, my height, my base color. This is basically, this goes into your base, but don't worry, we're going to do that now. Your diffuse color, and over this is your ambient occlusion. Alright, so we're going to plug all of this into Blender, and we're going to create ourselves something really cool. Alright, and so we are going to create ourselves that, and that is how we are going to get our cool texture. Alright, so let's begin. Okay, so if you don't understand the principle of shader, once again, you can go check out episode 3 where we spoke about shaders, and I give you the full lowdown on what's happening here, what you should adjust, what you don't need to adjust. You can adjust all of them if you want to, but Blender has created this really awesome. So up at the developers at Blender, they created this awesome principle shader. If it was not for this, I would have a whole lot of plugins and nodes all over this. We'd be living in node land right here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this default cube. I am going to example what we are doing today on a plane. So Shift A, load up a plane. I'm going to scale it up quite nicely, get ourselves a nice piece of land here, because at the end of the day, this texture basically is a ground wet with rocks. So that's why I'm going to use this plane. Okay, I need to create a new texture. So just to take note, I'm here in the shaders tab. I'm going to create a new texture here. I'm even going to name it. All right, wet ground with rocks. Pretty awesome. Okay, and as default, I've got a principle shader loaded up here. So we're going to plug in all of those image textures that I showed you earlier on. So first, Shift A, texture, image texture, and you can see the minute I load it without clicking, well, the minute I've clicked image texture, Blender then sort of keeps your node in drag mode. So once I've got it in place here, I click, I'm going to plug it into the base texture. All right, and also just to take note is that if I press Control Z, and just to take note that when I press Z, I'm going to have my different shading modes over here. Make sure you're in material preview. That way we're actually going to see it live as I'm plugging in the different objects. It's also going to be pretty interesting to see what each item is doing for you already. All right, so let's go. Let's load up. Let me navigate to the place where my textures are. All right, so I've navigated to the place where my my textures are. Here we go. This is the folder that you basically get from CG Textures or whichever texture, wherever website you get. And so I'm going to put this in, I think it's horizontal mode, yes, just so that I can read all the names, because you can see the beginning starts off the same, but then what you want to pay attention is to these names right at the end here, because then you know which texture needs to be plugged in where. So the first one I'm going to plug in is my base color. All right, there you go. It's plugged in my base color already. See, already you can see, not looking too bad, quite nice. You can see it's placed it down there already. All right, the next one we need to do is, I think I'm going to load up. All right, then I'm going to load up my roughness over here. So again, texture, image texture, and drop it over there. Connect the guy into my roughness node over there. Look at that. Look at what it's starting to do. Just plugged in this image. Looks like water, huh? Now, as you can see, I've got the base color there. I've plugged into roughness, which means roughness now at its default is getting its information from this image. And since there's nothing over here, that's why it's the roughness is gone. There's absolutely no roughness, and that's why it almost looks like a glass, like water, like still water underground or something like that. And I mean, just looking at this already, this is like, wow, look at how awesome this looks. You can see it's reflecting my environment map right over here. We're going to get into loading these up as well, so don't worry about that. We're going to get there because you can even load your own environment maps. We'll probably do it in another episode. So okay, let's load in our roughness. Oh man, there you go. Check it out. I can just go to my recents, click over there. I'm going to load in my roughness, and the minute I load this in, it's going to generate it, and boom. Now this is where you can see the power of image driven textures, because you can see certain parts are glossy and certain parts are non-reflective. So some are reflective, some are non-reflective, and you can even see here, gents, ladies and gentlemen, have a look at this. There are even some parts that are not as rough as the others. So you can see how specifically, just looking over here, getting the angle right with the reflection of the environment map, you can actually see how detailed the reflections are, and then how they are like semi, and then how there are just no reflections at all. And you can even see how it lines actually up with my base color. And that's why it's very important as well to get textures from, I can't think of any situation where you would say, okay, base color this, okay, let's load something different for the roughness, something else for the specular. You often find that the same texture, you need to have the different images that drive your different attributes of the shader right over here, so that they can actually line up with your base color, right? Because imagine having like a rock over here on the base color, as in the color, but meanwhile it's glossy. It's not going to work through as well. Okay, so anyway, let's continue. Just going to zoom in. Like I said, to navigate these, to navigating here is it's very similar to navigating here. All right, scroll wheel in and out, scroll wheel in and out. All right, and middle mouse wheel drags around. Okay, shift and middle mouse wheel click, when you click your wheel down. All right, if you haven't watched my tutorial on the beginners, the navigation in it. Okay, the next thing that we're going to plug in here now is called bump mapping. And what the bump mapping does is that this is what's going to give our texture depth. It's going to bring these rocks out. It's going to give them, you see where these cracks are, it's going to lift certain parts. It's going to give nice detailed crevices and that too, where the cracks are and that. Okay, but before I need to do that, because with this texture, I basically got a bump map and I got a height map, and I need to plug them both in together. I'm going to put them into this normal node over here. All right, so Shift A. I'm not too sure where this thing is, but I think it's called, there it is. Okay, put that down there, plug the normal into the normal. I've got two places here to plug in. In fact, if you're looking now already, there's something already, no. And so here's my height, there's my normal map. So Control A, texture, image texture. Right, let's do my height map first. Plug this guy in there, open up, go to my recents over here, height map. And ooh, look at that. Wow, hey, it's starting to get cool. And check this out, it's not really doing anything. It's image driven, pretty awesome. And I mean, you can even see as I'm circling around, getting the reflections of the light, you can see how, the detail of the bumpiness, the crevices and the cracks, look at this, man. It's brilliant. It's awesome. Can you see how certain rocks are more shiny than other ones? It's really well driven. This is why, you can create your own textures. Maybe we'll look at that in the future. All right. So let me drive my normal map just to complete this guy. So texture, image texture. I'm going to plug it into my normal and I'm going to load up that normal map. And the recent and normal. Okay, there you go. Now you can see how we've almost got this like swamp like ground. You can make your adjustments here. All right, your strength and your distance. I think when I put this up to 2, And you can see how it starts bringing out details. The muddiness. Yeah, as well. Alright, it's just really see how I can get those rocks more out and stuff. So there you go. That is basically loading up my textures. And of course, note that all these maps line up together where the base color of this rock over here is the same as my roughness. That's why you got glossy around here and you got no glossiness or no reflection over there, and it's lined up with my bump map. That is why it is sticking out here and not over here. Alright, you can see it looks pretty natural ground. Go check it out, guys. There are on CG Textures you can look for so many different textures, and I mean, let's see if we can quickly, let me show you quickly, cgtextures.com. and by the way, this tutorial is not sponsored at all by anybody. Okay, it's not sponsored by CG Textures. It's just these are the guys I've been using, and I know that you can get stuff for free. You can see how you can get even textures like this. Look at this, fabric, floors, there's ground like that. I'd like to try that one. That one looks pretty cool. There you go, there's your rusted metal, different signs, my goodness, even animals. Yep, that's right. So yeah, and here we go. Here's your HDR skies. Your HDR high definition range basically is what the images that you build your reflective maps with. So you can even get that here. It looks like they've just started up with these. So that is what your reflective maps look like, by the way. All right. So e.g. Our forest. Let's say our forest is inside this building over here. Abandoned building. There you can see how they show you different with your reflective maps, the lighting, you know, all of that stuff, what it actually looks like. Okay, you need to obviously log in to download. Alright, so as you can see, they give you different sizes and that, but anyway, we'll be looking at this next week. We're not going to look at that right now. So I will start next week's tutorial right up with the HDR. Go ahead, try some cool textures out. You can even apply these onto different objects. All right. So e.g. I can create a cube, and all I have to do is to apply that texture onto this guy. Instead of creating a new one, there's this drop down over here. There she is. All right. Pretty weird, but believe me, look at that. It's like a mini wet ground. It's like pretty awesome. Can you see how the reflections are driven? It's very, very detailed, very, very cool. All right, let's delete this guy. Let's see what a sphere looks like. Right click, shade smooth, apply the material. I'm going to scale this guy up like this. All right. Right, there you go. So there's your texture. Pretty cool. There's cool wood ones. There's floors and tables and all sorts of, look at that, upside down world. So there's a lot you can do. Like I said, guys, next week we will look into UV texturing, and we will look into that map, that environment map that I was talking about. All right, guys. So I look forward to next week's tutorial, episode 5 of Blender. So hit the subscribe button, hit that bell button, because you want to get notified when we bring out all our awesome new episodes. And trust me, this is not all, guys. Go check out our playlist on Active TV on YouTube. There are tons of different shows there. Doesn't matter who you are and what your liking is, there's something for everyone. Go check it out. And when you subscribe as well, we release shows daily, all sorts of different shows every day. So that's why you want to subscribe. So until next week, guys, toodaloo, and see you then.